Hey guys, I'm Dimension Jumper, and today I'll be doing the top 5 actors that I would like to see in the Legend of Zelda movie. Now, as of recently, Shigeru Miyamoto has announced the actors who will be playing both Link and Zelda, which I have right here on my laptop, with Benjamin Evan Ainsworth. I think I'm saying that last name right, as Link, and Bo Bragason. Again, I think I might be saying it right, as Zelda. Now, these are two relatively unknown actors, and I think, as I've seen from other creators like Nehru and Tyler Townsend, who I've seen videos made by them about the casting of these two characters, they're relatively unknown, and I think they will help make the Zelda movie a lot, will help boost the Zelda movie, because these two actors are quite unknown, and if it's other big name actors, then you'll be kind of seeing the actors more than the characters, I would say. And that's what I kind of remember from watching their videos, and I'll probably be leaving them in the description below. And this video is mainly inspired by Nehru's video, because when I watched it, I thought came to my head of what characters or what actors could appear in the movie. Now, this is my personal fan casting in terms of which actors could possibly bring in a bit more, or try and help boost the not only the movie, but also maybe the actors, both Bo and Ben, when it comes to them playing alongside some of the big name actors. Maybe that's kind of where my headspace is when it comes to this sort of thing. So, for all intents and purposes, this is my personal fan casting sort of thing. So, yeah. So for number 5 is Danny DeVito. Now, I would say Danny DeVito would be a funny choice, but also a maybe sort of interesting choice, because I feel like he would make an excellent Tingle, just this old man in a sort of in a green outfit, and I think Danny DeVito would be a really funny, interesting choice. Just to see him just swanning about in Tingle's iconic outfit, and yeah, because I think this could really be interesting, and again, I think it will be really interesting to see how Tingle could be adapted into live action, because I think a lot of the characters in the Zelda series can be easily translated into live action, like Link, Zelda and Ganondorf, Impa maybe as well, the King of Hyrule. But I think the funniest one to being brought into live action is probably Tingle, and it'll be cool to see like in the movie Tingle helping out Link with maps and stuff, because that's what Tingle does in Majora's Mask, and he can also help decipher charts and stuff in The Wind Waker. So I think Danny DeVito can definitely bring that sort of comedic element to Tingle. So yeah. For number 4 is Pedro Pascal. Now, I know that Pedro Pascal has starting to appear a lot in a lot of movies now. I think that he's going to appear in several movies during the summer of when this is being recorded, with one of them being the Fantastic Four movie that's coming out in a few days, as of when this is being recorded and then uploaded later tomorrow. And I would say he would make an interesting King of Hyrule, because Pedro Pascal has that sort of fantasy element to his resume, because he's been in Game of Thrones. So I think if he was brought into the Zelda movie, and if he was made the King of Hyrule, I think he would fit quite naturally in it. He would be a sort of responsible king, I would say, and in terms of he could help Zelda train her powers in terms of her sealing abilities or her goddess abilities, that sort of thing. And I think he would be an interesting King of Hyrule, just seeing him just being on that big throne and stuff like that, and just being a sort of kind and respective king, being completely an opposite to the King of Hyrule that we saw in Breath of the Wild. So yeah, I think Pedro Pascal would be an interesting choice. And plus, as I said before, he has that Game of Thrones background too, and if he is in the movie, he could lean on that. So yeah, for number 3 is David Tennant. Now this, I think with David Tennant, I think he could play, if everyone is speculating what we think could happen, the Zelda movie could take elements largely from Ocarina of Time. And I personally think that David Tennant could play a pre-time skip Ganondorf, maybe. So before Ganondorf got into power, and then you can, in the post skip, or in the time skip, 7 years in the future, you can easily replace him with a different actor because of how long, in terms of power, Ganondorf's in. If not Ganondorf, or pre-time skip Ganondorf, I think David Tennant could be a King of Hyrule, maybe, similar to Pedro Pascal, in terms of they could both play a version of the King of Hyrule. And yeah, I'm leaning more to a pre-time skip Ganondorf. Maybe, I don't think it could possibly work, but I think it could be more of a King of Hyrule for Ganondorf, not Ganondorf, for David Tennant. So yeah, I think it's one or the other, in my opinion. So yeah. For number 2 is Florence Pugh. Now, I would say Florence Pugh would make, I think, a fantastic sage, or one of the 7 sages. And yeah, I think she could be like a Sage of Light or something. And similar to how like Zelda was a Sage of Light in Tears of the Kingdom, I think Florence Pugh could be the Sage of Light in the Zelda movie. If not a sage, then maybe like a sort of helper to Link, as like a sort of companion of sorts, kind of like how Link has had companions in other games, or like Tears of the Kingdom. No, not really Tears of the Kingdom, but like Skyward Sword, Twilight Princess, Majora's Mask. So maybe she could be a companion to Link and just help him just like experience the world of Hyrule, maybe, as well as being like a sort of voice to the audience of people who might have not played the Zelda games. So yeah, she could, again, similar to David Tennant, it could be either one or the other, depending on what role or what characters they are going to be in the movie. So yeah, and I think I can see Florence Pugh being either a sage or a companion of sorts or something, or a helper, that sort of thing. So yeah. And for number 1 is Christopher Judge. Now, this was the main reason I wanted to make this video, because I did a comment, or I wrote a comment on Neri's video that he released around the time of the casting of Link and Zelda, and which we see on screen right now. And one of the replies that I got for my comment was that Christopher Judge could play a Ganondorf, or could play Ganondorf. And I would say that this would be an interesting and probably a really cool choice, because if you don't know who Christopher Judge is, he is the most recent actor to play Kratos in the most recent God of War games. So God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok. And I would say he would make an interesting Ganondorf, because he could bring some of the elements he got from playing Kratos to Ganondorf. Because in both God of War 2018 and Ragnarok, Kratos, there are a lot of scenes where Kratos is intimidating. So there's 2 good examples in that. The first being when he first meets Baldur, and he just gives a scene of, he basically says, "Leave my home," and it's done in that really sort of like really gravelly old man growl. And then the second scene is when he's talking to Odin in Ragnarok, and Odin's like, he's like, I don't remember what he says, but like Odin says something like, "You're God" and stuff like that, and no one cares about you, or something like that. I don't 100% remember, but then Kratos says, "Return my son, or you will face the God I once was." And I think Christopher Judge could bring those sort of elements to Ganondorf and just make him really, really intimidating and a force to be reckoned with, because that's what I see when I look at Gandalf. He is a force. He is charging through waves of soldiers and stuff like that, and I feel like he can't be stopped unless he's fighting Link. And even with like his fights, like in Tears of the Kingdom, The Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Ocarina of Time, he is still an intimidating force. And I think Christopher Judge could bring a whole lot of elements to that from his performance as Kratos. So yeah, so overall, I think that there could be a potential for any of these actors to be in the movie. I think it's going to be a sort of similar way in how the live action How to Train Your Dragon films are like, because you've got Gerard Butler, who's returned as Stoic, and then you've got Nick Frost, who plays Gobber. So in the Zelda film, I feel like Nintendo don't want to have a whole lot of well-known stars, because I feel like it'll get crowded out a bit too much, and I feel like they will overshadow both Bo and Ben in terms of star power. So I feel like there could be, similar to the How to Train Your Dragon live action film, there could be one or two big name actors that could be in the movie to help both rise the stardom of both Ben and Bo. So yeah, so that's been my top 5 actors that I'd like to see in the Zelda movie. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.